Hello, salam, bulla, and g'day. Michael Gallis on A1 TV, Healthy Living Monday, Magic Monday. So good to be here. And we got a special guest, Kate Parker from Sea Shepherd, who I'll introduce in a minute. Katie, just before we jump into it, you can see I'm wearing mainly green. Percy the platypus from Bandara joining me today. And we've got the Pakistani flag up there because on Saturday, just gone, was Pakistan's Independence Day on August the 14th. So a big cheerio and a big happy Independence Day to Pakistan and all our Pakistani viewers across Australia and around the world. Very exciting day on Saturday. And we'll jump straight into it because I know Katie's a very busy lady. Katie, it's great to have you on. You're one of my greatest friends in relation to your inspirational. I'm going to call you an environmental warrior with the Sea Shepherd organisation. So if you can,
thank you.
You're going to explain it a lot better than me. What is an environmental warrior and what is Sea Shepherd, who you volunteer for? Everything you're about to hear is from Katie, who's a volunteer. She doesn't get paid for any of this, which is quite extraordinary. And if we had more Katies in the world, we wouldn't have the issues we have with the ocean and the environment at the moment. So Katie, take us away in relation to what is an environmental warrior first.
Okay, well, I would say, I guess it's open to interpretation, but I would say an environmental warrior is anybody who puts environmental causes right at the heart of what they do, that they live it every single day through the way that they, the kind of things that they do in their home life, but also the kind of things that they support. And I guess any way that we are supporting a better environment, so whether it's climate change or being considerate about what we're eating for the better of the planet, I suppose anybody who is living their life considering the need to protect the earth is probably an environmental warrior, I would say. And I would say Sea Shepherd, sorry?
You're an environmental warrior with Sea Shepherd, concentrating on the oceans. And just before you jump in, we're on Zoom, everybody out there, because we're in our, I think I've lost count. Are we in week 6 of a stage 3 or lockdown in Melbourne?
Week 2 of stage 4, second round, who knows? I'm not sure even anymore.
So
we just all can't leave the house.
Yeah, correct. We can't leave the house. We're in a curfew. We're locked down from 5 a.m. till, locked down from 8 p.m. till 5 a.m. We can't go more than 5 kilometres from our house due to the coronavirus. So I've been very lucky to join all our friends in the upcoming weeks via Zoom. Katie Parker joining us. Katie on A1.
A1
TV. Healthy Living, Magic Monday, and so good to have all our viewers joining us on Monday, one of my favourite days of the week, because you don't know what's going to happen. And thanks for joining us. Thanks for all your positive comments and support over the last few weeks here in Melbourne. That's what's getting us through. Katie Parker, one of my inspirational friends, about to tell us about what it's like to be an environmental warrior with Sea Shepherd and the amazing work that Sea Shepherd does, not just around Australia, but across the world.
Correct. Yeah. So being an environmental warrior can be from the small choices you make at home or huge life choices in the way that you live your life. And Sea Shepherd is an environmental organisation that focuses on marine conservation. So specifically looking at what's happening in our oceans and trying to protect the life in the oceans and trying to preserve the oceans for the good of the planet. So I guess all Sea Shepherd volunteers, as most of our volunteers, are environmental warriors, but our main focus is the oceans. Yeah.
And why did you get involved with Sea Shepherd?
I suppose I've always, had a great love for the oceans, and ever since I was a little child, I've been absolutely fascinated going to the sea and finding all little animals and rock pools and things like that. And as I got older, I learned to dive and became a dive master, and I was obsessive with scuba diving. And I think when I originally heard about Sea Shepherd, it sort of joined the two dots between the things that I absolutely love, which is the ocean, and then trying to live a life where I spent more time protecting and preserving the thing that I love. So for me, it was just a natural progression. If I want to enjoy this ocean, as soon as I started to learn about how much human action is just absolutely abusing our oceans, I felt like it was my obligation to, if I want to enjoy these oceans, I have to try and do something to protect them because they are in a dire strait. And we need more people to be aware of how much pressure there is being put on our ocean life systems. So it was just I guess it's just like paying it forward to hopefully have a beautiful ocean for myself and for everybody else in the future.
And how did you get involved with Sea Shepherd? You mentioned there you loved the sea. Where did you first hear about Sea Shepherd? And why did you think it was such a great organisation to join, again, as a volunteer?
Yeah, I guess I sort of heard a bit about Sea Shepherd. Like I've seen the logo quite a lot through the diving that I've been doing. People had them on their surfboards or on their dive bags and things like that. And so I kind of knew roughly about who Sea Shepherd were, but it wasn't until I went to actually a screening of a documentary here in Melbourne that was hosted by the Sea Shepherd onshore volunteers in Melbourne. It was a great environmental documentary called Cowspiracy that I highly recommend that everybody watches. And I went down there and I met some volunteers and they were like, oh, one of our ships is in town. You can come and have a tour of the ship and you can come and join us and be a volunteer and take other people on a tour of the ship. And everybody was just so passionate. And I went down and I saw the ship and I met all the rest of the onshore volunteers. And I learned, even on that very first day, I learned so much about like the extent to which we're damaging our oceans, and not only impact on the sea life, but also the human life that's impacted by mass overfishing and illegal fishing and things like that. And I don't know, I felt like, I can't believe there's this organization that's international. We have so many ships all around the world that are crewed by volunteers, people who give up their lives to go and fight to defend the oceans. And I thought it was so inspirational, but not even just the crews that are at sea, the guys that I met who actually were the ones that kind of were the catalysts for me joining with the Melbourne onshore crew, and just seeing how passionate those guys were. The fact that they're hosting this event, it's in their spare time. They've all come down on a Friday night to share this news with the general public for free. And everyone I spoke to was just so deeply concerned and so passionate and so keen to share their knowledge, share their passion for the oceans, and just happy to take anybody in and show me around and made me feel so welcome. And I just thought, wow, this is so cool, and I really want to be a part of this huge family. And
what's your role within the organisation?
Well, I have had a few over the years, so when I met, been around for a while, but so I originally met the Melbourne onshore. So we have crews that work at the city, and we have crews that are based on land. So we call them the onshores, and the crews that stay the offshores. The onshores do all of the fundraising, so they're really the backbone of the whole organization. Without the onshores, we wouldn't have any campaigns. Yeah. So those guys are often the unsung heroes of Sea Shepherd, because those guys are the ones that are like going down to the festivals and to the markets and to gigs on the evenings and on weekends. Pretty much everybody works full time. They do it in the spare time, and we sell the merchandise and we raise the funds for Sea Shepherd. Or we do outreach events, so we educate people, we go into schools, we talk to families, anyone in public speaking events that will come and have a listen, we'll show them videos. So there's a lot of work that's going on there with the onshore. So I joined the onshores, I was with them for quite a long time, and still am, when we're allowed to go outside ever again. We might go to a few events. So that's the onshore role that I had, and then eventually I just became more and more involved with Sea Shepherd and more determined to get onto campaigns. So eventually in 2016, I think, quit my job and jumped aboard the Steve Irwin, which was docked in Melbourne for a while, and I became an offshore crew member. So I worked in dock for several months in run up to campaign, so just getting the ship ready, and then I went off and sailed.
Sorry to jump in, Katie. You quit your job and you went to the Steve Irwin to help them to go on a campaign. What was the campaign, and were you paid for this?
Campaign.
Is that why you did it?
Sorry?
Were you paid for this? Is that why you quit your job?
No, it's all voluntary. So nearly all the crew that go on board don't have paid roles. Obviously, we have to have some paid roles for people like the captain who have got a lot of experience, and we need to have some people who are qualified, who aren't just have speech pathologists like myself jumping on board. So anyone who's got actual skills and qualifications and tickets, they have paid role, but the majority of the crew are volunteers. So I wasn't paid, but I just I knew that I wanted to give even more, as much as I possibly could, to this organization. So I jumped on board to join the ship to get it ready, and then eventually we went to Antarctica for Operation Nemesis, which was the first campaign.
And what was
that I crewed with.
What was the main focus of that campaign?
So the main focus of that campaign is probably what Sea Shepherd is probably the most famous for in Australia, which is defending whales in Antarctica from the Japanese whaling fleet.
Yep.
So the ships have often been docked in Melbourne or down in Hobart as they set sail down to the Southern Ocean. So super famous in Australia, but was the last Southern Ocean campaign that we did. But essentially we go down to Antarctica and the whole campaign is trying to find the whaling fleet. And then once we found the whaling fleet, doing absolutely everything that we possibly can to stop them from whaling. I must say, must be very clear, Sea Shepherd is a non-violent organisation and we work within the law, but we will do everything that we possibly can to disrupt illegal practices. So, you know, whether that's positioning our ships between the two whaling vessels so they can't refuel, or they can't pass one whale over to their factory ship that they have, or, you know, whatever tactics we can use, we will do to try and reduce or ideally prevent the number of whales that are getting killed every year down in Antarctica.
It's not exactly, you didn't just sort of ease your way in, straight on your first campaign, down to Antarctica against the Japanese whalers whose ships are very well organised and very well weaponised for obviously catching the whales. Were you feeling scared at any point, or were you really comfortable in the knowledge of the experience of the people you just spoke about and the way that it was really well organised, that you knew everything was going to be okay?
Oh, absolutely. I had complete faith in the crew. I knew that I was very green. I had worked on boats before in my diving career, but I 100% trusted our captain. Was amazing, Vionda. She's been in the Navy. You know, I knew that she had complete control and our best interests at heart. And all of the senior positions, the bosun, who's the head of the deck team, so my direct boss, you know, was incredibly knowledgeable and skillful, and I had complete faith in them. So I had no fear in terms of our crew. Yeah. I suppose there were a few moments when we got down there that I was thinking, if something went wrong, this is not the best place in the world to be having a fire on board, or a hole in the hull. And, you know, sometimes at night my cabin was right on the side of the hull, and we'd go through ice fields, and I was woken up by it scraping past me, the ice, sorry, it's scraping past the hull, and I'm thinking, if there's a hole in this hull, this is not going to be very good at all. But
no Titanic.
It would have been a massive Titanic moment, yeah, except instead of Jack and Rose, it would have been like 36 of us hanging on to bits of shit. But yeah, I don't know. I think maybe there was one moment when we found the Yoshinmaru, one of the Yoshimarus. So they're the harpoon vessels.
Yeah.
The Nishin Maru is the big factory vessel, and the harpoon vessels pan out and they go and harpoon the whales and they bring them back to the factory ship. And we originally, when we found the whaling fleet, the Yoshin Maru, which is quite a fast vessel, was a lot faster than the Steve Irwin that I was on. It was sort of on the horizon, and at that point I climbed up into the crow's nest, which is the kind of very highest point on the bow, and we were going to sort of harass the Yoshin, so we were kind of going over there, and it suddenly turned and came really quickly towards us, and there was a moment there that I was thinking, oh, I'm not sure if this is going to be the best, because I was harnessed in. Obviously, it's Antarctica. I'm wearing like Antarctica gear. I've got a big, massive orange jumpsuit on, harness, strapped in. And I was thinking, if they ram this ship, what's the chances of me just flying out of the crow's nest? Who knows? So there was a moment there that I was like, oh, this could be really dodgy. But luckily, they sort of came towards us, and then they hung around with us for ages, and, which was pretty good. They were tailing us, which means it was annoying in the sense that once they found our ship, they're faster than us, so they can radio the rest of the fleet and always tell them exactly where we are, where our coordinates are. So we knew once we'd found the Yoshin that the Steve Irwin was no longer going to be in the campaign. But we had another vessel with us, the Ocean Warrior, which is a lot faster. But for the Steve crew, we knew once we found the whaling fleet that it would be kind of game over for us. But the good thing was that that ship, the Yoshin Maru, it was following us around so that it was constantly letting the rest of them know where we were. But it meant that ship was no longer whaling. So there was at least one less vessel able to catch whales for the rest of that campaign. So that was kind of a half win, but we knew that was going to be the role of our ship because we were a lot slower. But as long as we had the Yoshin with us, which they did, they stayed with us all the way back to when we eventually came back to Australia. They followed us all the way into the border with Australia waters. So we knew that we had saved quite a lot of whales' lives just by the fact of having the Yoshin Maru tailing us.
And that must give you
every day, but it was good.
that must give you great personal satisfaction that
Yeah.
all of you on that ship, even though you weren't directly involved, you took one ship out of their whaling fleet, so it would have saved countless numbers of whales.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I, like majority of the people, love the whales. They're one of the oceans and our world's most majestic creatures, and for them just to get supposedly caught for scientific reasons by the Japanese government and their industries, it's just appalling, and it's a testament to yourself and the people of Sea Shepherd that they're out there and they're trying to save the whales so that our kids and future generations will be able to also enjoy the wonder of whales. They're just an amazing creature. Were you lucky enough to see any up close, the whales?
Oh, we saw so many whales. Like, I could not believe it. I mean, there definitely are obviously a lot less in numbers. You know, I remember reading a book that was talking about, I think even maybe the 20s or the 40s in last century, the ships would stop to let, you know, a whole pod of whales come past. And sometimes the ships would be stopped for like 24 hours because there were so many whales in the pod coming past. They really were just thousands and thousands and thousands more whales. So I know that the numbers have declined just terrifyingly low. However, we did see a lot of whales. We were very lucky, and it is obviously a very rich ocean, and it is full of life down there. And I think probably my favorite were the killer whales. We saw some orcas. There was a whole pod that came flying out of nowhere, and then we all ran out on the bow, and they just dove underneath the ship and came up the other side, and they were spinning around looking at us, and then they went off in the distance, and they were obviously catching something. So yeah, that was a really special moment. And yeah, and we also had another moment when we had our engines off for a brief while, and a couple of, I think they were junior humpbacks, came, and they were just staying around the boat, and they were so curious, and they were really looking at everyone. They stayed with us for about an hour, and we were all just down there, you know, screaming at the whale, "We love you, whales!" And they were just rolling around, and yeah, they were really, really curious and just absolutely gorgeous to see, and just, you know, just made the whole campaign, just made it feel so, you know, so beautiful that we were there, but kind of so bittersweet knowing that these graceful, inquisitive, intelligent animals that mean no harm, can do no harm to anyone, can just sort of be treated as a commodity and just taken out the ocean like it's our right to just feed off whatever we want. So it was a really kind of really concreted what we were doing in that moment and why we were there, and the necessity to keep on saving the ocean. Yeah.
No, amazing. Absolutely amazing. Michael Gallis on A1 TV, Healthy Living. And we're joined with Katie Parker, one of my inspirational friends, a volunteer, environmental warrior with the Sea Shepherd organisation. And you just mentioned the grace, the intelligence, the beauty of whales. Why is it so important? And this is another part of healthy living, is to continue to look after the world. And you're specifically involved in looking after the world's oceans. Why is it so important to look after our world's oceans?
Yeah, well, I guess a lot of people don't know, and I didn't know this until I joined Sea Shepherd, that the oceans actually convert the air that we breathe to produce the oxygen that we breathe, more so than the rainforests do. You know, when you're at school, you learn that the rainforests are the lungs of the planet, and they are, don't get me wrong, also need to protect the rainforest.
Yeah.
But the phytoplankton in the oceans, it does a lot of that processing of, I think it's carbon. I'm not strong on the science side, but producing O2 and producing the air producing air that's clean enough for us to breathe. So Captain Paul Watson, who's the founder of the organization, he's famously known for saying, "When the oceans die, we die," and it's absolutely true. When the oceans aren't able to produce the air that we breathe, all life on the planet will die. All life that breathes air. So, you know, it's absolutely critical that we know this, and that we live a life that is going to support a healthy ocean, whether that's thinking about the amount of plastics that we're consuming that end up in the ocean, thinking about global warming and the acidification of the oceans, thinking about overfishing. There's so many threats to our oceans that we treat it like this completely never-ending resource. So it's something that we just can constantly take and take and take, and it will regenerate because it's so big and it sustains so much life. But what people don't realize is that we're at a really critical, really close to breaking point with a lot of our fish stocks are being plundered to the point of not being able to recover. The amount of sharks that we're killing is to the point where the whole, the apex predators, the whole ecosystem underneath them is going to be out of shape because those predators at the top have been taken out. And the rising ocean temperatures and the coral bleaching that's happening, it is happening on a mass scale, and people just, it's so out of sight and out of mind, people just don't realize how important it is. So I think it would be great for everybody to educate themselves around the state of the oceans and make those changes in their own life in so many different ways to have a healthier ocean in the future. Otherwise, we're going to potentially all die. Not to put too fine a point on it. Go die.
Save the oceans or we're all dead. So that's a good slogan. That's
a happy Monday thought for you.
Thanks, Katie, for putting it so simply and so succinctly. That's exactly right, people, that we've got to look after our environment. As far as we know, we're the only living human life force in the galaxy so far. So if we don't start looking after each other, and you don't have to get on a ship like yourself, Katie, do you, and go to Antarctica and save the whales. What are some local things people can do, even in their own house, to help the environment and help the oceans?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many things that you can do. You don't have to, give up huge amounts of time or your life, but even just thinking about, I mentioned just before, plastics is a huge one. So thinking about how much single-use plastic you're consuming in your life, because most of that plastic will end up in the ocean. And I think there's a statistic around, scientists have predicted that by 2050, there'll be more plastic in the ocean than fish in terms of weightage. So it's absolutely terrifying how much plastic.
That's just extraordinary. More plastic in the ocean.
It's terrible, isn't it?
If we don't do
awful. Yeah, absolutely. So a very simple thing that you can do is just buy reusable, buy recycled. You don't need plastic bags. You can get reusable coffee cups, reusable plastic bottle, water bottles, to get rid of plastic bottles. So even just what you purchase will have a direct impact on our oceans in terms of how much of that plastic waste is going to get into the oceans. Obviously, Sea Shepherd would support people choosing to not eat sea creatures. That is a very easy way that you can protect animals in the ocean.
Yeah.
But actually, scarily, one of the biggest predators on ocean life is actually cows and pigs, because so much of the fish that's pulled out of the ocean goes to cattle feed and to animal feed. So I would suggest looking at your own diet, making more responsible choices in what you're eating is another way that you can absolutely support the better health of the ocean, but also educate yourself around where your food is coming from, what's the impact. I saw somebody post the other day that Coles own brand beans were actually beans that were picked in somewhere like Peru and then flown or shipped to Italy to be canned and then passed over to Australia to sell. So that one bean that you think, oh, that's a cheap can of beans, doesn't matter. It's been around the world, and the carbon footprint of that bean is enormous. So buy local, educate yourself on what it is that we're just so conditioned now to just mindlessly walk into the supermarket and just pull stuff off the shelves and not think about it. But really get to know where your food is coming from and what choices you make and have the impact that they are having on the environment and on the ocean. So what you choose to eat can have a huge difference. Obviously, who you choose to vote for in Parliament, choosing political parties who have environmental agendas at the forefront of their campaigns. So obviously the Greens party is an obvious choice there if you want to make more environmental choices. You can also come down and do beach cleanups with Sea Shepherd, or you can do your own beach cleanup when you're going out for a walk in our waterways or rivers. You can just pull bits of trash out of there and take them home with you. That will take you a couple of seconds, and every little bit helps. You can buy our merchandise and you can help support our organisation, which you can purchase online.
So Sea Shepherd, Katie, you have the website. What would that be? And social media links. If you've enjoyed,
so if you go,
if you enjoyed listening to Katie, and because you've got it, it's all around the world. Sea Shepherd, isn't it? Too. It's not just in Melbourne or in Australia. They've got organisations everywhere. And
absolutely,
they go to your website, which is they can, but not just get involved, but just educate yourself about it, which is, I'm sure, Shepherd's got that on their website as well, haven't they?
Yeah, so it's www.seashepherd.org.au would be the Australia website. But if you just Google Sea Shepherd, there's a European version, there's an American version. We have ships all around the world. We have volunteers on the ground all around the world. If you do want to come down and get involved, right here in Melbourne, we can get you involved in taking people on ship tours with Steve Irwin. But many, many chapters around the world will have things like beach cleanups. We have some land-based campaigns that you can get involved with. But like you said, even just educating yourself around really how critical ocean conservation is at the moment and making some different choices in life, that would be, if nothing else, the best place to start. Yeah.
And you're a speech pathologist by day and environmental warrior by night, and on the weekends and on your holidays you take time off.
That's right.
Simply inspirational in what you do with other Sea Shepherd volunteers. And as we've just heard, it's extraordinary how little it takes to make such a difference with the sea and the ocean, to buying recyclable items in your house, to be thinking about where your food comes from, to be thinking about making healthy choices for eating in relation to ocean wildlife. Yourself, what have you got planned for the future with Sea Shepherd?
Yeah, well, a few more campaigns. I'm hopefully going to be going back again next year, as long as COVID is not too much of a problem. But yeah, back to Sea Shepherd next year and continue with the Sea Shepherd Dive program that I run here in Australia. And yeah, I guess continue volunteering and hopefully make an impact.
Now, I was very lucky enough to meet you down at Yarram at the Hero Roundtable motivational speaking tour run by Maddie Langdon. And from that, we've stayed friends and had different talks in relation to charity work and making a personal impact. Yourself, you've had a few ideas about what you want to do in the future yourself, outside of Sea Shepherd. Can you take us through that idea?
You're cheeky. I told you that in confidence. Yeah, we talked about, actually, it was at the Hero Roundtable with yourself.
Exclusive, Katie, exclusive.
Hot off the press. you were the one, you were talking about, if you're going to do something, you should just go out there and do it. And now, off the back of that motivational speech that you gave, yeah, I am hoping to do some work around protecting manta rays. There's an awful lot of manta rays getting killed for their gills for medicinal purposes, which is invalid. They don't have any medicinal impact, but there's huge numbers getting killed in places like Indonesia. And I'm hoping to put together a project to try and do something to protect the manta rays. So I've been out there a few times already, and I've met with a few organizations, and whether or not it's my own project or joining another one, there's a few out there already that are in existence, but I really strongly feel like we need to do more to protect the manta rays. So hopefully, one day that will happen.
Yeah, well, you got to have an idea first, and then you chip away, and bit by bit you'll make it go. And just a big shout out to everyone around the world that's battling the coronavirus and having an impact on their lives. Really, Katie, from your experience in Melbourne, like myself, being locked down, it's been pretty amazing, the resilience and the determination of all people. And I just want to shout out to everyone around the world to saying, well done for your compassion, well done for your empathy, and well done for your determination to basically, all you have to do is to control what you can control. And if we all worry about that, as well as supporting others that need some support, we'll certainly get through this, won't we? And it'll pass in time.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. You're very right.
Nothing? You give me another game.
What did you say? I didn't hear you. I thought you said that it will happen in time. What did you say?
What's your perspective on it all?
Oh yeah, well, yeah, same. I agree. Yeah, no, it's been remarkable. I've been working at home now for, like you said, what is it, like 5 months or something, and the whole of my team, we work in schools, and it's just been amazing. Like, resilience is definitely the word. You know, all the teaching staff that we support just seamlessly transition to online and homeschooling, and for sure, you know, Zoom fatigue is a real thing, but it's amazing how much we've managed to accomplish, given, you know, the sudden, very quick and very kind of not the word I'm looking for is, like, you don't know what's going to happen, I guess. Like, no one really knows what's going to happen, so, and there's no way of preparing for it, so we just also finally had to move to this online world, and it's actually been remarkably easy, I would say. Like, there's been challenges, but I think the positivity and the kind of team togetherness that has happened, like the supporting each other, camaraderie, that's what I'm looking for. That's what's pulled us all through, and being able to do things like this and still to be able to talk to yourself and to connect to people that ordinarily we would just go and hang out with. We're very lucky that we have the capacity to be able to do things like this to keep us all sane. Otherwise we probably would be going absolutely bonkers. But yeah, it still is a very interesting experience going through this, but knowing that everyone's in it together, you just kind of end up going, well, that's it. I guess we've only got one choice, which is to keep going and support each other and hopefully get to the other end of this.
Never know that you would be lost for words, Katie. That was the first. we'll have to get Maddie Langdon. I hope he's watching. Maddie, see, she can talk slowly or not at all at some stage. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. We really appreciate your time in educating
Thank you so much.
To Sea Shepherd and being an environmental warrior and really looking after our oceans, because as I've said earlier, without people such as yourself and Sea Shepherd, our oceans would be in a dire trouble 10 times, 100 times worse than it is today. And as you mentioned in the program, we have to look after our oceans. They are an integral part of our lives in relation to us staying alive. So we need to, and we need to stop talking about it and stop meeting about it. We all know what we need to do. We need to reduce plastics. We need to reduce fishing in the oceans, and we need to start looking after the animals because, as you know, Katie, who was here first, the humans or all the animals?
All the animals, and they'll be here after we're gone as well.
Correct. Katie, it's been a pleasure having you on. A1.
Thank you so much. A1 TV.
Healthy Living. Magic Monday, a bit of a Urdu sign-off, Katie. Shaba Shaba.
Shaba Shaba.
Mazzy Karoo.
Mazzy Karoo.
And Hooroo.
And Hooroo.
Hooroo.
Hooroo. Sorry.
Hooroo. That's an Aussie one. I know you're from England. Actually, we didn't touch on that. We'll might have to have a part two about your life in England and your journey to Australia. And we're so glad you made that choice, and really a big thank you from me and all our A1 TV viewers across Facebook Live, Instagram, YouTube, and A1 TV for all that you do and all your organisation does for us and the world. This is Michael Gallis signing off. Have a great week. I can't wait to see you next week on Magic Monday. Thanks for joining us tonight, and good evening.